everybody, and welcome back to the Fiber, Floss, and Fiction podcast. My name is Anne, and this is a podcast in which I talk about a whole bunch of crafty stuff as well as books. Today is Thursday, June 20th, 2019, and I hope all of you are well. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Thank you for choosing to come back and spend some time with me. And if you are brand new to the channel, I hope that you find some things here of interest that will entice you to come back and visit with me again in the future. So everything is good here. We are coming up on the summer solstice, which is mind-blowing to me that we're already this far into the year because I think we just had Christmas. I'm pretty sure we did. It certainly feels like that here. My husband's been home for a whole week. He's actually here through this weekend, so we've been doing a whole bunch of stuff like hanging towel racks in the new bathroom, stuff like that. We got a new little fountain to put out on our back deck, which is really nice. And things have become more summery here. It's heated up, but it's still super pleasant and down in the 50s at night, so yeah, it's been a really nice summer so far. I think that's kind of all the life updates. Nothing too crazy going on here, which is fine. So I guess let's just hop right on into it. The dog is moaning and groaning for reasons I have no clue. She's on her bed, but I guess her life is really hard. So if you hear her, that's her complaining. Let's talk first about some knitting. You can find me, if you're new to the channel, as Woolly Wonka Fibers on Ravelry, as well as Facebook, as well as Instagram for the knitting end of my world. I have been working on my beekeeper cardigan, which is by Olive Knits or Marie Green. Here is a funky looking printed version of the cover. If you joined me last time, you know I'm kind of trialing this as a possible sweater to do a knit along with for my yarn club next year in the Woolly Wonka group. Great little pattern so far. I am almost done the first skein of yarn. I am knitting this from a Polworth wool and silk DK blend. I've decided to knit it in the colorway brocade. This is about all I have left of the first 350 or so yards. And I have divided the sleeves from the body. So you can see I've put those on waste yarn here. And then I am working on just knitting the body pattern down to where the ribbing starts. I think I have about 2.5 or 3 inches. I think I have like that much more to add before the ribbing starts. Here is a close-up of the little bees pattern, which is super cute and very easy to work. It's just a knit purl and 1 slip row pattern. And really like how it's coming out in this yarn. I like the subtle variegation in the yarn. I mean, it's a tonal dye, so it doesn't have multiple colors in it, but it is that lovely kind of movement quality that you get from hand-dyed yarns. So yeah, and this is one of my favorite bases. It's knit up at a slightly looser gauge than I would probably normally knit it, but I think it will be a really nice season-spanning cardigan. Just show you the picture here again. The fronts are left open. They do have ribbing bands on them, but there's no buttons or buttonholes. I mean, you certainly could add those, but I think I probably would wear it open, more like it's styled here than, you know, buttoned up to the top. It has a fairly scooped neck in the front, and I think it would look really pretty over kind of a sundress or something, you know, casual and summery. I have a few dresses I think it would work great with. So that is what I'm working on. I'm also working on a secret knitting project, which I will show you guys when it's ready to go. And then finally, I have released a new sweater pattern. It's a short-sleeved summer top. It is a top-down yoke neck sweater. It is called Solstice, and I will put a link to, no, it's not called Solstice. It's called Liva, which is another name for the solstice. I will put a link down below to the Woolly Wonka Fibers group, as well as specifically to that pattern. It has gone off to be used as a shop sample, so I've already shipped it away and whoosh, gone off into the great beyond. So that's all we're going to talk about in terms of knitting today. I don't have any spinning. I've just totally fallen off that wagon, so I won't even bring that section up again unless I have something specific to show you guys in the world of handspun. So let's move on to reading and books. All right, so I finished reading the Harry Potter book for School of Magical Stitches and Literature. That was for the months of May and June. I finished my super long book, which was an audio version of Game of Thrones, Fire and Ice, which I had never successfully gotten through, but can say I have now. And then I ticked off the last 2 books on the extra credit reading list for May, June. The first of which is called The Red Queen. The author's name is Victoria Aveyard. I will put links to Goodreads down below in the box so you can find them if you'd like to give them a try, or they sound like something you're interested in and want to read the synopsis. I think I should direct all of you to Jessie Marie's review of this book, because basically that is exactly what I thought of it. The sum total was I really wanted to like this book more than I did, and I didn't like it that much. I would say maybe a 3-star, maybe, and that may be generous. It is a fantasy book, and it also is sort of coming of age, young adult level book. It's about a young girl who is a red, which is the local population who are kind of the underlings, less fortunate, less desirable group of the population. And she is coming of age, and once she becomes of age, in a year, she will get conscripted into the army, which is basically just a place where reds go to die. There's no advancement particularly. It's pretty much dead end, but if you don't have some specific skill, that's what you go off and do. The ruling class is known as the Silvers because of the color of their blood, and they also all have some particular power. Some of them are they can control fire, some can control water, some have like a telepathy and control other people's minds. So they're kind of the haves, and the reds are the have-nots. And our heroine gets a sort of step up in life when she is tapped to go work at the palace. But things kind of go downhill from there for her personally, and she finds out some things about herself that she didn't know, and it catapults the whole plot forward from that point. The best way I can describe this is sort of a combination between the really bad 1980s movie called Red Dawn and the Stephenie Meyer's like Edward the Vampire books. There's not specifically vampires in this, but there's a lot of teenage angst. I didn't care for this book particularly, if you can tell. So that's my review on it. If it still sounds like something you'd like, again, information down below, but was not to my personal taste. The next book I read was called Luncheon of the Boating Party, and the author is Susan Breland. So this book is a book I should have really liked. Again, I did not like it that much. I liked it better than The Red Queen, but the book is about the several weeks over the summer where Renoir painted his painting Luncheon of the Boating Party. And I wanted this to be a really interesting book about late 1880s Paris and France and the artist community, and certainly about Renoir. And all those things were in it, but it was very confusing as to who most of the supporting characters were. And I'm saying this having listened to Game of Thrones, where George R.R. Martin has like 8,000 characters in it. I was able to keep those characters straight, but not so much in this book. I was having to like constantly Google to figure out which person this was that they were talking about. Now, granted, the Luncheon of the Boating Party has a large group of people. It has over 10 people in it. I think it's 11 or 12 people. But part of the problem was that none of these supporting characters were fleshed out very well before they got dumped into the storyline of Renoir painting this painting. And there's kind of no story before and no story after that you understand how all these people know each other or why he's asked them to be in the painting. And the other confusing part for me was like a lot of the people had very similar names. So again, I kept having to sort of look up and see which one this was. The portrait of Renoir that the author creates within this book, I think is interesting and good, but it also assumes that you know at least a fair amount about his life, how he became a painter, his links with the Impressionists, kind of what the Paris art life was like, the Beaux Arts, the salon exhibitions, those kinds of things. They really weren't, like, there was no real information about them to help you understand to fit Renoir into the context of what was going on in this painting and why he was willing to sort of stake his reputation on it. So I wanted to like this book as well. I didn't love it. It should be right up my alley, but was not. So link to that below as well if you think you can soldier through it. Then I picked up, just to continue reading because I read all the time, another book. This is going to be a broken record, a book that I thought I would like more than I would. The author is Janine Frost, and this is Shades of Wicked. This is another book within her sort of vampire world. It's one of the characters she had created in prior books that we now kind of get his more full story. I've liked other things I've read of hers, and so I was like, oh, great, you know, a new one to kind of continue to further this. And I went into it with the expectation that these are very like summer beach reading books. They're pretty quick reads. I mean, they're about vampires. There's some sex in them. There's some violence, but it's like made up vampire violence where people's necks get broken, but they're a vampire, so it doesn't kill them, you know, stuff like that. So I wasn't not expecting all of that. So all of those things are in this book. I just had a really hard time getting into the characters, and I'm not sure why on this particular one. They just didn't resonate particularly well with me. So I think some of her other books are stronger if you like that sort of vampire romancy kind of book. I would start with something other than this one. I don't think this is her strongest set. And there are more books beyond this one. This is not really billed as the first in a series, but it definitely is the first in a series because our two main characters are kind of left hanging at the end. Okay, let's move on to something I am enjoying. Actually, two books I am enjoying. The first one I am listening to on audiobook is The Priory of the Orange Tree. Stephanie over at Miss Oh So Crafty mentioned this book. Jessie Marine's got it on her to-read list. I had tagged it as a possible one that I might use for another very long book because I think it's over 700 pages. But I went ahead and downloaded it, and I'm listening to it on audiobooks, and I think I'm about a third through and loving it. It's great. It's epic fantasy. I'll talk more about it when I'm done it, but yes, great world building, interesting characters, loving the story, all those things. The next book, which I just started, is actually a printed book, The Witches of New York by the author Amy McKay. I'm assuming that's how she pronounces her first name. This is one my dad had sent me. So it's set in New York City in 1880, and it combines some of the actual historical fact about this was an era in which seances and trying to contact the dead were very popular, not just as a pastime, but there were a lot of people who were the spiritualists who felt that this was a real thing you could do. And you could take classes in it. You know, you could have the upper class wealthy over for dinner, and then you could contact your dead loved ones kind of evening. So this involves some sort of historical fact about that period, but then it also involves some sort of magical realism. And you can see I'm not very far into it. This is as much as I've read. But already am very much liking the characters. Love how the book is structured with like snippets of information that are from like newspaper clippings and newspaper advertisements, and then interspersed with that are these storylines that at this point have not yet come together, but I'm certain will, because it's sort of the point of the book and the information on the back tells you so. So I will do a more in-depth review once I finish this one, but so far really enjoying this. And I think there's several other folks out in the FlossTube podcast world who have also read this one, so you may have already found it and think it's wonderful as well, or found it and didn't like it, but found it one way or the other. All right, so that's gonna do us for books. Let's go on and talk about cross stitch. I worked on a whole bunch of things for various and sundry stuff. The two things that I'm kind of focusing on are my School of Magical Stitches homeworks. I have finished all the extra credit for May, June. Those are done. So when I have some extra time, I'm also working on my Ultimate Challenge projects, and I have 4 of those left, I think. 3 or 4 of those left. So I'm interspersing some projects with that, as well as working on the June monthly challenge for the 24 Hours of Cross Stitch group, which Jen Lee hosts. I'll put links to both of those Facebook groups below. And before I forget, I wanted to make sure I mentioned the fact that, reminder, July 6th in the Full Coverage Fanatics group, we will be kicking off a stitch-along challenge that will run consecutive with the Tour de France. I mentioned it in my last podcast, but just updating you all with a reminder about that, because it is a fairly short challenge. It just runs in July during the Tour de France. So all the information is in the group, and as always, I'll put a link to that below so you can find not only the full coverage group, but also the event itself. So what have I worked on? Let's start with the big project first, which I'm sure y'all know what that's going to be. It is my stitching shelf from Heaven and Earth Designs. I'm working on this from a large format PDF, which this was the very first Heaven and Earth project I bought because I'm that way. And so I had gotten it in a large format thinking I was going to print the pages off, but I only work off a tablet now, so it's kind of a moot point what size you get, because you can expand, you know, you can blow up the grid. But so even though my pages have less stitches on them, I'm still, you know, counting them as page finishes, just not a full coverage page finish for purposes of Stitch from Stash. It's still a lot of stitching, ain't gonna lie. All right, so here I am. Really pleased with the progress on this. I have finished this portion of the page with this amazing looking window. You can just see there's this lady. Right there, that's like the back of her head where her hair is at the nape of her neck. And yeah, love the colors, love how this is coming out. Yeah, just love everything about it. I will be using this for the Tour de France challenge in July in the full coverage group. And I'm pretty sure I'm just going to go for the yellow jersey, which I think is like right around 30, it's just under 3,500 stitches. So that'll be good. That'll get me, you know, more than halfway through this next page. The pages on here are like 5,200 stitches. So I'm sticking with my monthly goal to try to get a half page done every single month. So every other month I have a page finished. And so that'll actually get me a little bit ahead, and I'll talk about that more in my plans. Okay, so there is that one. I then also worked on the Joan Elliott project called Celtic Wheel, which has the 8 Celtic festivals of the year in it. It is in, I will show you this in a minute. I don't know why I don't just mark this page, because I show it often enough. You'd think I would just do that so that I could find it more easily, but apparently not. It is in the Bewitching Cross Stitch book, which has a bunch of other very neat patterns in it, and it is this pattern. Sorry for the glare. And I am stitching this on a 32 count sampler gold even weave from Color and Cotton, which I really like how this is looking against much better than the white that's shown in the book. So this is the first page is basically this section, and the pattern has 4 pages, and I have maybe down to here for the bottom of it. So this time around, I filled in almost all of this piece of the knot work. I also went back and filled in the green that goes around here. I extended the border down. I worked this diagonal that will come down to the middle and kind of meet. There's a center medallion right here. So I added that, and then I started on the Mabon, which is one of the fall. This is Samhain, which is October 31st. So this is the fall equinox in September, mid-September, so like September 21st. And there's acorns and little leaves in this section. So what I've decided I'm going to do with this is going to become a big focus piece for the second half of the year now that I've gotten Stargazer finished. I have 2 other Joan Elliott's on the go. They're both fairies. I've got the Winter Fairy and Autumn Fairy started. So I could have worked on either of those, but I kind of wanted something a little bit different. And I mean, this isn't typical of her patterns, but I love how it looks. It's not typical in terms of the subject matter. So my plan for this is to pull it out whenever I can to do a homework prompt on it, and then I may work on it at other times. I may even work on it a little bit next week. We'll see what the homework looks like, and just keep working at it. I'm not going to necessarily say that I want to have it finished this year, but it's going to be a focus piece where I'd like to get some good stitching time in on it. And then if nothing else, look for a finish on it next year. And so I'm going to focus on page 1 as much as I can. And yeah, just see what I can get done on it. The colors are all as called for. They're just DMC, but I really like them on this. I wanted something that looked kind of like parchment, and I think this looks great. So there's that project in its current status. I then worked on, well, these aren't even in any order. I also worked on Snow for Christmas by Brenda Gervais. I got some good progress on this one, my little teeny scrap of fabric. So I got the sheet mostly stitched. This is just boring, back and forth thing. And then I got the Santa Claus's pants and his coat jacket done. So this is my last Make 9 project. You know what, guys? I forgot my 2 finishes. I gotta go downstairs and get them because, yeah, who doesn't want to show off finishes? Let me finish talking about this real quick. So this is the last of my Make 9 challenge projects. It is being stitched on 32 count linen from Picture This Plus using color and cotton hand-dyed floss. So I know I can get this done this year. I'll probably pull it out for homework, or I'll just pick it and use it, you know, do it as like a weekend project at some point. Okay, so everybody hold tight. I'm gonna be right back. For you, it will be just a second, but hold that thought and let me go get my finishes. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what I was thinking. I have 2 finishes and I didn't bring them to show you. Let's go with my last 2 projects that I've worked on, just so you can see those before that. I worked on Summer Sampler by Cooler Design Studios. This is available as a download from their site, or I believe 123 Stitch also carries the print versions of these. Jess, how is yours coming? Have you worked on yours at all this year? I don't think it was one of your focus projects, so probably not, but anyway, doing this on a 32 count Murano even weave from XG Designs. The colorway is Sand. And here is where I am. I carried this border over, as well as this border. I worked on these seashells, which look amazing. I love how this came out. This is a design that relies very heavily on the backstitch to look like anything at all, which is fine. I actually don't mind backstitch, but only if I do it as I go. So this shell is completely done, and then I finished filling in a lot of the water, added more of the sand. This is the little boy. This is the sand castle in the middle, and then you can kind of see there's the little girl's hat that's sort of outlined, and then her body comes down here. So it's basically a full coverage vignette. Yeah, I have a ways to go on this. So, and actually all of this section up here is all full coverage as well. But I have really enjoyed working on that, and this will definitely come out again before the summer is over. I'm going to try to work on it as kind of a seasonal thing, since the summer starts, official summer season starts tomorrow. Okay, finally, I am currently working on this, and I will be working on this through the end of the weekend. It is A Long Winter's Nap ornament, artwork by Donna Gelsinger, and then charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. And I am stitching this on 25 count easy guide, even weave, and this is where I am on it. And you may notice I am doing this slightly different than I normally do. These ornaments are a little bit hard to figure out, at least for me, where to start because they're circular, and I have started at the edge before. Did not like how that was. I was also doing it on a smaller count fabric, which I really did not like. So when I started it over again, I just started in the middle. So this is this first button and this fold in his sweater, and then I'm working into the beard. So it's basically this area right here. I am, however, doing this sort of cross-country. This has a lot less confetti in it than the Amy Stewart, a stitching shelf, so I have had less problems doing cross-country with it, although that is not my normal preferred method of working. It seems to be going okay. But like, for instance, from this line over and all the way through this, like all of this is just 310. I mean, it's just a big old block of colors. So that makes it a little easier. And even up into his beard, there's, you know, maybe 3 to 5 colors in any one block, as opposed to like, you know, 85 colors in one block. Thank you so much. So this is actually stitching up pretty quickly. I don't have any particular goals right now for it, but again, kind of talk about plans here in just a minute. So whatever I get done for this, will be fine this go round. I don't think I'll get a page finish because the page obviously goes all the way up to here. This is the top edge. It comes down actually over to there. But I am going to try to get 1,000 stitches in it for one of my ultimate challenge extra credit pieces in School of Magical Stitches and Literature. So we'll be working on that through the weekend, and then again, like I said, we'll see what homework brings. So now let's talk finishes. My first finish was a Stitch 9 piece. This is the September wordplay from Brenda Gervais. I can't remember which picture this plus die color this is, and I've lost the tag. I have it somewhere in some note, but anyway, it is done. Color conversion, all of my own choices, which I loved. The bulk of them are color and cotton. The only one which is not is this brown and green variegated color, which is a Gentle Arts Wood Trail, I think it's called. Really, really happy with how this came out. I think it's super cute. We'll be finishing this into just a little cushion like all my other ones. And did I say 32 count? Because it's actually, I think, 28 count. Pretty sure it's 28 count. Legacy, maybe? I don't know, it might not be dark enough for that. Anyway, finish, yay. So this was project 8 of 9 for the Stitch 9 challenge. So like I said, I just have the Snow for Christmas left to do. And then I also finished, I got the bulk of the stitching done on this during the 24 hours of cross stitch marathon a couple weekends ago, which was super fun. I was team sleep all the way, so I stitched my 24 hours over the course of the weekend, but I definitely went to sleep at night, and I also took a shower and I walked the dog and all that good stuff. I did stitch for 24 hours, and so I donated $10 an hour, so $240, to the Four Corners Equine Rescue. I have donated to them before. They do great work. They're in kind of an impoverished area up in the corner between like New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona. There's not a lot there. They get some really difficult cases, and they have a lot of horses that they are either trying to rehab or that aren't going to be rehabilitational, that they know that they're going to wind up keeping. So I sent them a PayPal payment for $240 and told them to spend it on whatever they thought they needed most. They have 2 new horses that came in who were in pretty bad shape from not a hoarder, because he didn't have multiple horses, but like he had never trimmed these horses' feet, and they were like 10 and 11. So I mean, their hooves were so long they could barely walk, and they were in a paddock like the size of my dining room. So I hope that they put it towards that, but if they had some other crisis that they needed vet bills coverage for, whatever they needed. So I'll put a link to it below if you're interested, if you love horses and want to donate towards that. They make it really, really easy to do. You can pick a horse to sponsor. You can pick one of their horses who were badly abused but are in training, just to try to get them workable near humans. Or you can donate to their general fund. One thing that I really like about this particular rescue, sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, is just that they work very, very hard at getting their horses some skills, the adoptable ones, because my vet said this to me when we first got horses, and I had a youngster, the horse I bought when he had just turned 3. He said, the thing of it is that even if you don't train a horse for a specific discipline, if you train that horse to have life skills in dealing with humans, meaning like getting a halter on, getting saddled, having their feet picked up, getting in and out of a trailer, just basic everyday stuff that the horse is accustomed to, that goes so far in making sure that horse is not going to wind up as a throwaway if something were to happen to you. Like somebody will recognize that horse is trainable and has good manners, and you could go a different direction with him. Like if you wanted to do a certain discipline, if you have a horse that you just toss out in the pasture, you can't catch, you can't halter, you can't do anything with, that's the horse that's going to wind up at a rescue. So the thing I really like about this rescue is they work very, very hard with a set of trainers to get a horse that comes in who isn't physically necessarily in bad shape, meaning they could go on to have another life with a rider or in some other working fashion. They get them a skill set, and to me, that's priceless. Okay, off my equine soapbox, let's talk finish number 2. This is When Witches Go Riding from the Prairie Schooler. I did this on a 28 count linen that I hand dyed myself, and then all silk threads, which I also hand dyed myself. So everything was a conversion. Loved this, super fun little stitch. I love how it came out. I love that it's sort of antique-y looking with the hand dyed flosses, and it's not as vibrant as the DMC version, but I am 100% okay with that. So I think I'm going to do a flat fold with this. I actually had thought about sending it to Vanna, but she's not taking, her wait list is so long. She's not taking orders. But if any of you have a finishing service that you would recommend that does the flat folds, let me know in the comments below, because I might be interested in sending this off to have that done in time for the holidays. So that was finish number 2. Those both helped me quite a bit, plus my page finish on a stitching shelf. I'm still in the hole for Stitch from Stash for this half, but it's only like $12, which, yeah, that's not too bad. Could have been a lot worse. Okay, let me make sure I covered everything. I did. Excellent. All right, so let's talk really, really quickly about plans going forward. One thing that Kim, who is Kim Hollenbeck on YouTube and the Spartan Stitcher elsewhere, she's my co-admin for the full coverage group, had talked about doing is sort of updating some of her plans for the second half of the year, which I love to do that. I love I love making plans, but then you have sort of only January, and sometimes things change over the years, the course of the year. 12 months is a while, so I like the idea of being able to sort of update what I have in mind for the next 6 months. Now, I'm still sticking with No Starts 2019, been doing really good with that. Have compiled a rather long list of things I want to start, but have not started any of those. Going forward, I am going to continue to focus on a stitching shelf to at least keep up with the half a page per month goal that I had set myself in, I think it was the end of February, beginning of March, so that will get me through the end of the year. I think I figured that got me 10 pages finished. I am actually going to try to see if I can finish that finish goal, meaning finish my 10 pages that I've allotted myself for the 10 months I had remaining of 2019, speed that up a little bit and see then if I can get a page finish on this, Long Winter's Nap, at some point this year. And then I also have about the same amount to finish a page on Winter's Encounter, which, if you remember, that's another Heaven and Earth design. That's the kind of windswept horse, and there's a little chickadee in that. So I'd like to be able to try to get those 2 full pages finished on those 2 projects, plus get my 10 page finishes total for a stitching shelf. We'll see how that goes. The other thing that I'm going to do is, like I described with Celtic Wheel, I'm going to earmark that as a large project to finish, or get as close to a finish as I can here in 2020 or in 2019. One of the things I've looked at for 2020 is the fact that almost everything I want to start is a massive project. I have several. I'm not sure where I stuck it in my journal. Here it is. I have several large pieces like the Pilgrim from Long Dog. I have a Teresa Wensler. What else do I have in here? I actually have a couple of full coverage pieces I'm thinking about starting. I have my Scotland Mandala from Chatelaine and I'm thinking of starting. And I'm not going to talk really in depth about that today. I'm thinking about doing a separate video that will be a whip parade and talk about maybe how I want to deal with the rotation next year, even from a very sort of casual pre-planning sort of point of view, and talk about some of my new starts. If you all want to see those new starts as well, let me know in the comments below if you'd be interested, and I can kind of tack that onto the current whip parade and do that all at once. And that would be just a standalone video that was just that, didn't have anything else in it, to keep it hopefully a little bit shorter. So I'm not going to be focusing it as much on my smaller pieces except to finish Snow for Christmas, because that's on my Stitch 9 challenge list. So once I get that finished, depending on what homework's like and some travel that I've got over the next 6 months, I'll probably, take a small or pick a small to work on, either to fit the homework or that will fit in my suitcase. But basically what I want to do is focus on some of the larger pieces. I want to get some more stitch time in on Summer Sampler when I can. Like I said, the Celtic Wheel is kind of a focus. So I'm not going to be focusing on it every single week. I have to get a certain amount of stitches done. It's just one of those that when I can pull it out, I'm going to pull it out, and that will be the thing that gets stitches put into it, aside from the full coverage stuff that I'm working on. So I think that's going to do me for today. Hopefully this won't be too long. I think it's still under an hour. Fingers crossed that that's the truth when I add this piece to the prior. As always, if you want to get in touch with me, I can be reached through Woolly Wonka Fibers on Instagram, or Littlebirdstitcher on Instagram, Littlebirdstitcher, all one word, as well as on Facebook, and in my Ravelry group. I'm always happy to have new friends on Goodreads. If you're on that site and would like to add me as a friend, that's fantastic. Yeah, so otherwise, I think the next time I would be here is July 4th. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so that's the next time that I am supposed to be filming. But that's going to be kind of a crazy weekend. My husband's home. We've got some social things we're doing. We're going out of town for a day. We've got to drive to Albuquerque twice, which is like 200 miles of driving. And so it may be a little bit longer than usual till the next time I see you guys, but it will be somewhere around the weekend of the 4th, 5th, 6th here coming up. So until I talk to you again, I hope everybody is having a great summer or winter season, depending on which hemisphere you're in. I hope you're enjoying all of your crafting and reading things. I know I am. And I will plan on talking to you in a couple of weeks. So take care, everybody. Goodbye.